The Select Board meeting for February 24th, 2026 to order. Our first item is Pledge of Allegiance, led by Sean.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sean. I should note that Tom is with us this evening. He's en route. He's going to be participating remotely, and then we're going to switch over at some point when he arrives. Our second item is our open forum, frequently asked questions and announcements. Kristen, I believe you have something to share?
I do have a few things, yes. So wanted to start off, we do have Hannah Muller, our treasurer collector, online regarding some of our town meeting warrant articles, but she has instituted a new lockbox procedure with your motor vehicle excise tax bill. So if you should have received your tax bill by now. The return address is a P.O. box in Boston, Massachusetts. That is correct. We have engaged with this lockbox organization, which many other municipalities do. They process the checks and put them in our bank accounts. It saves a lot of time for our staff at the treasurer collector's office that we no longer have to process those checks and deposit them. So please know that that is real. We have put out some notifications in the town manager's newsletter, social media, and we have signs on the town hall building. So again, thank you for your patience with that, and it is real, and continue to pay your excise bills. We'd appreciate that. I'd also like to congratulate the team at Choice Housing, as well as the 35 Town Farm Road Task Force. The state has finally awarded the grant for that housing development that occurred out in Pittsfield last week with other projects. So we will be moving through the process with the developer now. We have several agreements we still need to finalize. They're working with the land use department and the building inspector's office on finalizing building permits and the like. So just wanted to congratulate all of those who had a play in that, as it was a great feat. And then finally today, the Robinson School Building Committee met around noontime today, and in advance of that, myself, Dr. Chu, and Lindsay Richard, who are all on the building committee, interviewed 3 design firms for that project with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. At the end, we selected LaValle Bressinger to be our designer architect team, and they will be on board in the next month to work with us to then kick off the process for moving through site selection, moving through community processes, potential redistricting, discussions about that school building. So it has been a long time since town meeting voted that feasibility study allocation, but now we will be ramping up quite substantially. You'll be seeing that over the next few months, and we look forward to your participation. So thank you to that building committee. They've done a huge amount of work, and thank you to our OPM, Vertex, who has helped us along the way. And you will see a contract with LaValle Bressinger on your March 10th select board meeting, so then we can kick off with them on March 17th.
That's fantastic news.
Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'd just like to take a moment to thank members of our DPW and our public safety teams for getting us through yet another great, super fun storm. Hopefully that will be the last one. Probably not, but I think they did a wonderful job. Certainly, my wife was out early on the day of the storm, and she reported that the roads in Westford were excellent compared to the rest of the communities she had to commute through. So again, it's a ton of work that the teams are putting out, and just doing a great job. So thanks you very much for all their hard work and effort. Turn to the board. Any other open forum announcements from the rest of the group? Okay, fantastic. We are a little ahead. Can we go to the consent agenda?
We can, yes.
Okay. So why don't we move on to our consent?
Just double check that no one's on the Zoom.
Yep. Sure.
I don't see anything on Zoom. No.
All right. Cool. All right. We'll move on to our 7:10 agenda item, which is our consent agenda.
I'm sorry.
I
Sorry.
don't know if there was anyone here.
No, it doesn't look like it. Thank you. Okay, so we have our first item is the street closure. The event is Cub Mobile. The applicant is Cub Scouts Pack 95. The location is Fisher Way, north of number 5 to the Academy Way at Abbott School intersection. The date and time is Sunday, May 3rd, 2026, from noon to 3 p.m. And we also have a flag raising. This is Armenian program and flag raising in commemoration of the Armenian genocide. The applicant is the Armenian National Committee, Merrimack Valley. Location is Town Common, Flagpole, and the date and time is April 24th, 2026, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Do I have a motion to support or approve those items? Second. We'll, I guess, go by roll call since Tom is remote. Tom, are you with us?
Yep, aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. The motion passes unanimously. Now we are really ahead. So let's see, what can we do in the meantime? You want to do minutes for approval?
Sounds good.
All right, we're going to take out of order our 8:35 agenda item, which is minutes for approval. We have two sets of minutes from a regular session. One is the January 13th, 2026. And then there's also January 27, 2026. Are there any edits, changes? Fantastic.
Nice job.
Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Tom?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye, so the minutes are approved unanimously. All new business?
We could do A, C, and D.
A, C.
I'd like to have Tom here for the boarding committee handbook.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's review.
Makes sense.
Well, is the only thing keeping you, Jeff, is item D?
No, sir.
Oh, you're going to be with us for the duration?
For
Okay,
Few items.
I was hoping maybe we'd get you out, but okay, why don't we start from the top? We'll go for the, under our old new business. We have requests from the Armenian National Committee of Merrimack Valley to sign the proclamation in remembrance of the Armenian genocide of 1915. Any questions on that?
I did just notice that the document in the packet may reference the town of Chelmsford.
Exactly,
So we
yes.
will amend that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention,
You
John.
got the copy from last
I
year
did,
that I
yes.
sent? Okay, that's got, except for the names.
Yeah. We'll change the date. Thank you, John.
I guess that was my question, but I'll take it we've affirmed this proclamation in the past, right?
It's the same one as we did last year.
Got it. Okay.
Last year was February 11th,
If the names
2025.
aren't quite the same.
Got it.
Any other questions on that? I'll take a motion to approve that. Does anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Tom, we're doing a motion to approve the request from the Armenian National Committee. How do you
Yes.
vote?
Yes, I'm an aye.
Okay, thank you. Sean?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
John?
All right,
And I'm also an aye. Motion passes. Unanimously. We'll do item C here, was this, to accept the resignation of Darren I can't pronounce his last name, so thank you, from the Agricultural Commission effective February 5th, 2026. It's too bad to see him move on, but thank you very much for, I think it was 8 years of service, which is great. Do we need to do a motion to support that?
You just need to accept it. You don't
Okay.
have to vote on
Okay.
that. We'll put that back out.
Just a quick question. That's an appointed position?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we'll be opening up, taking volunteer forms?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
There's a slew of boards and committees that have openings right now, and I'm actually going to
Okay.
be meeting with our administrative assistant tomorrow to go through them. The Commission on Disabilities has several openings this year and several others. So we
Okay.
will put out notice. It will go in the town manager's newsletter next week and others, so you'll get
Yeah.
the VAF.
Maybe we can push them on socials too.
Yep, we will
Okay.
do that.
Thank you.
It did remind me that now that we're talking about it, we have a couple of boards where we had a mass amount of people potentially expiring at the
Yes.
same time.
Yep.
I can't remember, I think it was 2 boards. Do you
So
remember?
June, yeah, it was DEI, I think, and CEASC was my recollection. So
That's
we're
coming
gonna-
up, right, June? So-
June, so we'll be working on that as well
Okay,
to get those staggered.
perfect. Is there any action for us, or is that something?
No,
you're doing?
you don't need to
Okay,
do anything.
Perfect.
It would be when you're appointing them, then you would stagger the
okay.
terms.
So in terms of this particular line item, we can just accept?
Yep.
No concerns, I assume, from the board? Okay, great. Okay, moving on, we have approve Abbott Mill Phase 2 LIP/LAU application/regulatory agreement. And I think we'll turn to Jeff for a little clarity on what we're being asked to do here, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. So through benefit of the town's mill conversion overlay district and our zoning bylaw, the Abbott Mill, many of those old historic buildings have been converted to residential apartments. And this occurred in 2 major phases of development. So the first phase was approved originally in 2005. It contained about 131 units, and 12 of those units have affordability restrictions on them. But those restrictions in phase 1 do expire after 30 years, so that's not forever. The second phase was approved in 2015, and that contained 102 units, with 10 of the units being restricted as affordable. Those restrictions are in perpetuity. And then very recently, in 2025, there was a new property owner, and they explored converting another mill building in the first phase of development to add 7 additional units. And so what I'll say is anytime we have affordable units that come up through some town approval process, we try to have the affordable units included in our subsidized housing inventory. Unfortunately, the prior property owner, the applicant, and DHCD were not able to reach a mutually acceptable regulatory agreement for those affordable units in phases 1 and 2. And so none of those units currently count on our subsidized housing inventory, or SHI. We did work with the new property owner. They were very cooperative. And through the planning board process, they reached an agreement whereby all of the affordable units in phase 2, which is 10, plus 1 additional unit in phase 2 would go through this LIP local initiative program process, and they would secure on our SHI. So 11 units would become eventually on our subsidized housing inventory, which we think is a great benefit to the community. I will say it's not initial. There is a certain process that has to happen. So gradually these units would be added to our SHI as they turn over, because it has to go through the proper lottery process and affordable, housing marketing plan. So the applicant was amenable. They're required through planning board conditions of approval to at least bring this application before you. It's the LIP. It's the first step in the process, which would eventually result in these units counting on our SHI. The second part is after the state completes their review, it comes back to the town to execute the regulatory agreement. And so the motion we have before you tonight, we are asking you to first authorize the chair to sign the LIP agreement, and secondly, to execute the regulatory agreement once it's returned from the state, with the understanding that if there are any significant changes, it would come back to this board. But if there are no substantive changes, in the interest of time, we'd like to have the process move forward as swiftly as possible. So there's a lot of, there's some information in the packet. There's a lot more information available. It is a little complicated, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from the board for Jeff?
I have one question.
Sure.
The 30-year, why was that not in perpetuity? Why was that 30 years?
So that was before my time, but my strong suspicion is that the initial phase of development, there was certainly a lot of complicated financing and a lot of risk. And by limiting the affordability restriction to 30 years, I think that made the project financially much more viable. And I think that's also why once there's an initial phase of development past you, a second phase is far less risky, a lot fewer variables. And so I think that's why the second time around the planning board did require the affordability in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Any comments or questions from the public this evening on this item? Okay, seeing none, I do have a requested motion in our packet, and that reads that the select board authorize the chair to execute the Abbott Mill Phase 2 Local Initiative Program application for local action units and subsequent regulatory agreement and declaration of restrictive covenants. It's a mouthful. Do I have a
So moved.
to move? Do I have a second? Right, great. Any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Tom?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Joelle?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye, so the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, we are at 7:15, so I believe we can open the public hearing. All right. Okay, so our 7:15 agenda item is a public hearing, National Grid for a joint or identical pole location. I believe we have to have a motion, right, to open hearing?
That's correct.
Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Roll call on this one. Tom?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. So the motion is now, sorry, the public hearing is now open. Up to you, sir.
Good evening, David Boucher, Senior Designer, National Grid, 1101 Turnpike Street, North Andover. I'm here before you tonight asking for a new pole location, as shown in the diagram we've provided. It's near the corner of Old Lowell Road and Carlisle Road. Currently, our three-phase lines run down the east side of Carlisle Road and cross Old Lowell, as shown in the diagram you can see. At pole 57, we cross the road and go into a tree. It's guyed into a tree right now in a public way. What we're asking for is a new pole location. Instead of putting it in the tree, we'll be able to support our pole number 57 by doing it the proper way we would do if we were coming down the street and it was brand new. So if the town sees fit, it would enable us to place the pole as shown to support our line and remove the guy wire.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we had some comment from our DPW director, no concerns, right? But just to move the pole back, I think to 8 feet from the edge of the road.
Pavement, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
No concerns with doing that?
Sure. Yep.
Kristen, was there any comments from the public at all about this?
Nothing from the public that I saw. I know Kyle Fox is on the line if anyone has any questions for him, but his correspondence was the pole needs to be moved
And
8
then-
feet from the edge of the pavement.
Yeah, and I think the other was the potential for a tree hearing, if there were going to be trimming some of the trees there. Do you see that being part of the project?
If need be, we will have a tree, we will come to the town for any kind of tree hearing you need us to.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with what the plans are at this point and whether there is one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So presumably if we move it back, we're going to be moving more into the tree line, so it sounds like there might be a need for that to occur.
Okay, yeah, normally in a situation like that, our engineer will work directly with the arborist in town or the engineer, the town engineer. They do.
Who would he?
Kyle Fox is our
Kyle.
tree
Yeah.
warden, the DPW director.
Tree warden, okay,
Yes.
Kyle, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions from the board on this? Tom, do you have any questions?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, great. Just checking here. Okay.
Any comments from the public?
Do we have any comments from the public on this? Thank you, Kristen. Anybody online?
I don't see anyone's hands raised online or.
Anybody in the, yep, nobody here in the meeting room, so we'll go ahead and, anybody want to make a motion in support of this request?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All right, thank you, John. All right. All right. Tom,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye, so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in this evening.
Thank you, have a good evening.
We're going to close the public hearing. We need a motion for that as well.
So moved.
Second?
All right. Tom,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. So the public hearing is now closed. All right. We have our 7:20 agenda item. We're 45 seconds in advance, but take your time coming to getting set up, and we'll probably be ready for you right when you're all ready. So our 7:20 item is a billboard placement request by American Outside Advertising LLC at 5 Makepeace Road. This is adjacent to Route 3 at the Westford-Kingsborough border. I think we'll probably see some visuals about where the location is, Mike?
Yep.
On the map,
So you just
okay.
tell me, you want it up now?
Yeah, let Melissa.
Do an
give
intro?
the
You can bring it up now, though. Thank you.
We've got 13 seconds.
It's not a public hearing, so we can go.
We can go, all right. Kristen's given us the green light.
I'll take a little time introducing myself. Good evening, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from Farrell and Robbins. With me tonight is Stephen Ross. He's the manager of American Outdoor Advertising. Thank you, Mike. That's perfect. We're here tonight just to have a general discussion about a billboard proposal here at 5 Makepeace Road in Westford. Again, this is just a preliminary discussion. We have a proposed lease with the lot owner. We haven't done any permitting yet. This is more of a larger policy discussion with the select board and to talk about some of the mitigation we're offering before we go forward with any of the permitting process. Just to give you a little overview of what we're proposing, the yellow lot there that you see outlined is 5 Makepeace Road. I know that it says Dunstable, but it is in fact Makepeace. It's this GIS being cranky with me. If you get really closer, it says Makepeace, but since it's Dunstable that runs through Chelmsford, that's why it says Dunstable at the top. This is a very interesting site. It's an island really in Westford because you have to leave Westford in order to get there. We're bordered to the south by Route 3. We're bordered by, on the westerly side, by Tingsboro, and the easterly side by Chelmsford, and really you do have to leave Westford in order to get to this site. And that actually is one of the appealing choices to put a billboard here in the sign in the town of Westford, is that it's really outside of Westford along Route 3. It really won't have a lot of impact to abutters. Where the sign will be located is really to the tippity-top point of that lot, closer to where it says US Highway, basically adjacent to that, right there where Mike has it highlighted. So that's the general sign location. You don't have to flip there now, but in your packet there is a couple renderings showing what they would look like. The closest abutter across the highway is actually about I used the GIS, so it's about 660 feet away through the trees across the street to US Highway 3. So it's not close at all to the sign. The sign will be LED. We did include a light study in your packet. I know that if we actually proceed with permitting, the lighting would actually have to be looked at in a lot more detail because the town of Westford has lighting requirements. We certainly would exceed the lighting requirements for general signage in the town of Westford. So that's something that would have to be closely examined if we went forward with permitting. I will tell you that there is a very similar sign that American Outdoor Advertising did in the town of Tingsboro. So if you want to see what the size and scale of something like this would look like, you can just go one town over, and the town of Tingsboro has one. If the proposal does go through, the town will be able to use the billboard for its own advertising. It would be for 12 hours a month. I did not do this math, but it is a total of 4,320 messages a month. The town can use it for whatever they want, public service announcements, town meeting, or any municipal information whatsoever they want to put out there. And that's something that goes to the town for free of charge. In addition to the free advertising, when American Outdoor Advertising comes into towns, they always offer cash mitigation. And they will be offering that here as well. I think I mentioned in the cover letter, right now we have a 30-year lease with the owner of the property. So if you're wondering why I picked 30 years, that is why. So we're proposing $50,000 a year for the next 30 years. And if my math is correct, that's $1.5 million to the town of Westford. And I think I had mentioned, and I know that the town may be interested in maybe some of the upfront payments. And I think in the cover letter I'd mentioned maybe we could do $200,000 upfront once the sign is operational, ahead of the 30-year payments. I've said why this site is wonderful because it's on the edge of town, but people don't always travel down here either. So if everybody else can't see the sign, then what's the purpose of having town meeting advertised there? So you'll see in the packet what we're also offering for mitigation is a standalone sign, and that would be something that would be gifted to the town, and they could use it wherever they'd like. It goes on a trailer, it can go throughout town, it does colored pictures, it does anything that you're looking to advertise. It could go on the town common, it could go right on Main Street. So there's plenty of purposes that could be used for in the community. I think that I've gone through everything in the packet, and I don't think there's a need to flip through the pictures. You have them in the packet there. But what I'd like to do is just have a general conversation about the proposal. I think that the next steps, if the board was inclined for us to go a couple steps further and likes the proposal generally, what we would have to do then is figure out the permitting. So we'd have to meet with your staff and figure out the permitting. We'd obviously have to probably talk to town council a bit, just figure out the next steps and the agreements, the grant agreements going forward. And that's part of the reason I wanted to start with the select board. You may wonder why I didn't start with the planning board or the zoning board, That's why I started with the select board. This is more of an overall policy question, and then there's a little bit of legwork that I'd have to ask your staff to engage in before I actually got to a permitting step. So with that, I think I've talked enough. I'd love to hear some of your general feedback and questions.
Great, thank you very much. Turn it over to the board. Are there any questions for this? Sean?
Do we know, has there ever been an applicant trying to get a billboard sign in Westford before, or is this the first? Do we know?
Jeff, do you have any history on this?
So, to my knowledge, over the past 13 years, there's been just 1 or 2 prospective applicants who explored this, but they never followed through with actual permitting.
Okay. So it never got to a level where decision makers were voting on it?
Correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Kelly, just to your point, there would be a process involved, so it's not allowed by right, so you would have to figure out the permitting strategy, whether it be a variance or a new overlay or what's unique to the site, so you wouldn't be coming in as an as-of-right use, so that would maybe turn a lot of people away from coming into the municipality with a sign.
Right.
Any other questions? Noel?
How long are the messages up for? Like each individual message?
10 seconds, and that's mandated by the state. They can't change any more frequently than 10 seconds.
Great, thank you. John?
Do you have any other signs up and down Route 3 similar to this?
So, yes, we did one in Tingsboro, and then we did
That's
a
what I'm
management
saying.
agreement with Out Front, and they have since taken it over completely. But yes, we did one, Tingsboro on the west side of the highway.
So that's one you see when you're coming south.
Yeah, you can see it both sides, so it's
Both
a
sides,
V-shaped sign, so you can see it either way.
That's the one.
Left-hand read as you're
Right.
heading north, right-hand read as you're heading south.
Any other questions?
Follow up, is this is what you folks looking to do the same idea of V-shaped sign, so you would see it from either direction?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Tom, any questions for you?
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and I apologize if any of these are repetitive, just ignore them if they are. First, I'm interested in this. I think any solution that can give us some additional resources during challenging times is worth considering, so I thank everyone for bringing this forward. I'm primarily interested in if you've had any complaints from other communities where these have been installed, and what kind of complaints have you gotten? And also, I'm interested to know if other towns creating basically the same deal as other sites where you've done similar work.
Go ahead, you can talk to the first part, I can talk to the second part. Yeah.
Sure. So I've never had any complaints with any of the digital billboards I've built. I've built dozens of them in the state. And we pick locations specifically where we don't want to be next to residential for that purpose. So no, I've never had any issues.
And just to Mr. Clay's question about the agreements, yes, we've entered agreements. There's actually, I had an example, it's in your packet if you want to look at it later, that is the development agreement with the town of Tingsboro. I think they call it a grant agreement, but it's the grant agreement with the town of Tingsboro, which sets forth the payments and how the payments would work moving forward. So yes, we have done that.
And Melissa, if
please
you could
go
just
ahead.
explain to the board and the public why a grant agreement would be put in place. I think there was some confusion up front of, is this town land? Is that why
Sure.
an agreement needs to be made?
Right.
Could you give us the background of why the grant agreement needs to be put in place?
Sure, yes, and this is in town-owned land, and I think maybe it was confusing in my cover letter. So this doesn't have to go through any sort of procurement process or anything like that. This would be on private property, and this would be mitigation that would be given yearly to the town. Gifts of money are done through various documents. You see Town of Tingsboro calls it a grant agreement, but we would probably call it a development agreement, and that way the money could come in. The Board of Selectmen would vote to accept the money through a grant agreement, and then it could go into your fund of choice once the money comes into the town. And that's what the agreement will set forth. And that's why that it's put in place. If it's just outside mitigation that's written as a condition, it's not as enforceable. That's why you make sure that there's, as a condition of approval, we'll agree to it, and then there'll be an agreement that says we'll do it, that's enforceable.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Tom, any other questions from you, sir?
I guess just to our attorney, so thank you for providing that document for Tingsboro. I guess I was interested to know if there were other agreements that were similar in other towns, and if this fell into the range, or if it was higher or lower in terms of the grant,
Well,
just the grant amount.
as to not upset other communities, I won't go into specifics. Tingsboro's was, if you look at the terms, considerably lower, and for a much shorter term. So we have greatly increased the number and the term to match the lease that we have out here. And I can happily send along a couple other agreements we have with the other municipalities to Mr. Clay's point, just so you can make sure that we're in the range or higher. So Westford's getting a fair deal here.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're familiar with the dark skies and
Yes.
the support for that within the town of Westford. I
Yes.
just saw the League of Women Voters weekly email talking about they're going to go and look and see if they can put some more effort into reducing the amount of signage that's kept lit, in the evening.
Sure.
How would you respond to folks who might have concerns regarding the Dark Skies Initiative and this lighted billboard?
Right, well, this is an LED sign, so certainly there's less light omitted. I did include a lighting study that we already had completed, because I assumed that was going to be one of the first questions. And it is something we would have to work through, because it wouldn't be 100% compliant with your lighting regulations. And I know that the bylaw now allows for the building inspector to allow for signs to be on past 11:30. This again would be a sign that's on past 11:30. So we would have to meet all of those requirements, and we'd certainly meet with the staff and meet with the planning department and see what we could do to work on the lighting regulations. We also have another layer here, which are DOT regulations as to our billboard and signage. So we also have to comply with their lighting requirements and the timing for the signs and all of that, and the material that's on the signs.
Right. And given that it's basically focused out over, 6 lanes of highway with traffic almost continuously,
Right.
potentially the lighting might not be as great a concern as if it was pointed towards a residential neighborhood or something along those lines.
Correct, but we're still sensitive to the fact that we're gonna be basically over, even though we're next to Route 3, we're next to forested areas. And there is a butters down Makepeace Road that we believe we will not affect, and across from Route 3. So we're going to be sensitive to that moving forward. And then one of the next steps, if we proceed here, would not just to meet with planning staff, but to make sure we reach out to the residential abutters so that we can talk to them about their concerns.
Oh, that's a great idea. The other question I had, in looking at the grant agreement, I think it's item 4 here, which I think speaks to how the content is moderated. So there's some voluntary commitment to make sure that material is, meets certain criteria.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about how that is done? How do you moderate content? How do you select things that you feel are appropriate for display, or and maybe exclude things that aren't appropriate for display? And can you give some example, or have you had situations in which you've had to deny putting things up?
So yes, we don't put tobacco up, we don't put any sexually orientated businesses up, we don't do any attack ads. Things that are very controversial, whether it be pro-life or pro-abortion, we stay away from that. We really just try to do it for businesses to generate additional revenue. One of the more interesting comments I had from somebody driving by a billboard one time was a mother said, I drove by, my 9-year-old daughter was in it, and I said, well, what board are you talking about? And the ad said, your wife's hot. And I said, well, did you read the rest of it? It said, get your air conditioning fixed. So we're very, very selective. We don't put anything up that's going to be offensive or controversial, and we have a good track record with that.
Fantastic, thank you.
And we would agree to similar language. I mean, that was crafted specifically for the town of Tingsboro that had very specific concerns like you did about material. So we'd be happy to include that in a future agreement as well, if there is
Yeah,
one.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Necessary from my perspective.
Right.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the board? Yeah, no.
When it comes to the night skies, is there a way to shield the top of the billboard so that it doesn't, so that the light is aimed not in the night skies? Or is, with the LED, is that?
So that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you that in the evening, it automatically regulates. So it goes down to about 3% of its capability as far as brightness. And then, during the day, if the sun's shining right at it, it'll automatically go up. And then the state also regulates the brightness. It has it's called a knit gun, and they have to stand at 100 feet and they measure the light that's being emitted. So we have to meet all of those regulations as well. So it's controlled at the state level as well. But I don't know about a shield going up. I can look into that though.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So.
I did note in part of your material that this sign has the capability to put things up like Amber Alerts. Can you talk a little bit about how that is done? How do you coordinate with the relevant authorities to make sure that that gets put up in a timely manner and conveys the right
Absolutely.
information?
So we go, we partner up with the FBI, And whenever there's an amber alert or silver alert in a certain geographic area, they take over the sign for 3 hours, and then it goes intermittent as time goes on. As far as local, literally, if I get an ad sent to me, if I'm sitting in front of my computer or somebody in my office is, we can have it up in 10 minutes. So if you have something that's going on in town and needs emergency attention, we can do that.
Is that something that's available like 24/7, or is it only during business hours, for example?
So I generally have 1 or 2 people, and then I have a backup person as well in another company. That's a great question about 24/7. I've never done it in the middle of the evening, in the middle of the night.
I don't know if it's really necessary. I'm just curious, if there was something that necessarily we wanted to get out on a Saturday, do we have the opportunity to do that if it was time sensitive?
My cell phone, always on, so yes.
Okay, great. All right. So at this point, this is just sort of informational, no action is necessary by the board at this point, or do we need a
I
motion?
think the
or-
applicant may want to understand the sentiment of,
Sure,
yes,
sure.
please proceed, or no way, we are not interested, so is that correct?
Yes, because I'd like to use some of your staff's time at this point if we're going to proceed to, try to understand what the permitting process would be. I'd like to engage with some abutters. Obviously, this is preliminary, so I won't be filing anything with the planning board or zoning board, but I would like to proceed if it's the inclination of the board for us to go a little further.
Okay, so before I ask for the sentiment of the board, I just forgot about our lovely public. Is there anybody in the public here who'd like to make a comment? And do we have anybody online?
I do have one online
Okay,
as well.
thank you. Go ahead, Angela, please. Just let us know who you
Hi,
are.
Angela Harkness, 15 Castle Road. So I was just thinking, is signage is usually governed by the select board, is that correct? Isn't this, or is it governed by the planning board?
So signage is generally governed by the planning board in most instances.
Okay, what does that mean in most instances?
So the planning board is given some authority with our zoning bylaw to authorize certain kinds of signage. Some may be either as of right, some may require a special permit, but there may be some things that the planning board lacks the authority to grant or to violate terms of our zoning bylaw. In such cases, it might also require approval from the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, and how does this fit into the planning board scheme in terms of whether
So-
or not it's allowed, or allowed by right, or allowed by special permit, or requires zoning board, or is not addressed at all?
So in my opinion, a billboard in and of itself, and one in this location, it's not allowed either as of right or by special permit under the sign bylaw. However, I can foresee at least 3 different ways through either permitting and or town meeting action that it could be made possible.
Okay, and just one other question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know Melissa said there were illustrations that were in your packet of the sign. I think for the purposes of the public who may be tuning in, it would make sense to put those up so people can see what it's going to look like without having to go search for the planning board packet.
Absolutely, that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Angela. Mike, is that something we can?
Yeah, we have we have Tingsburg, the picture of the real sign in there. It probably is the best one so people can see the size and scale, so that'd probably be the best one to bring up.
And while he's bringing that up, they asked the other question from the public.
Please do.
Sure, so Valerie Young asked, could the portable digital sign gift instead be considered as a permanent installation at some agreeable location for town messages, similar to the one outside of Neshoba Tech? So are you married to the portable sign donation, or would you also consider potential permanent?
Sure, yeah, I mean, the portable sign was really for a town flexibility in the location. If it was the inclination that the town needs a sign elsewhere, we would be happy to look at a permanent location.
Is this the picture?
That's the picture, yeah, so you can see the bottom picture there is the sign that exists now in Tingsboro. So this would be of similar size and scale, yes.
I would suggest that you look at the proposed one, though.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's, if you have that. Mike.
Yep.
The one that, I believe it said amber. alert.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this one's a little bit lower, showing a little bit of a lower angle. And we've used the brightest color, so you could really see the sign very clearly. That's why it's in red. Yeah, that would be the general sign location. So, and you can see that it's really pointed towards the highway in both directions. That's why it's really not an impact to the abutters down Makepeace.
Is that scaled correctly? It looks like it's a little large to me, but
It's fairly close. So
Okay.
the size of the billboard is 14 feet tall by 48 feet long.
wow. Does it make sense to show the mobile board? You might as well, right?
Sure.
Because I think that's really neat.
So this is like an A-frame board. So
It's a V angled for the people on the road to view. There's no light that's emitted off the back, so it doesn't affect anybody behind.
So this view here, that was looking northbound. That's
Correct.
northbound on Route 3.
Yes.
Okay.
He's pulling up the mobile sign now.
Eventually.
It's okay.
Well, they're doing that, Chris.
Yeah.
Thoughts? You're taking
Sure.
some
We
opinions
might as
of the
well.
board. I
since
believe
it-
that's what Kristen has.
Yeah, so go ahead,
Yeah.
Sean, you want to lead? take this
Sure.
away?
There.
I think there's, first of all, I think I'm for it, and I think that we're kind of mandated to at least consider this based off of our current financial situation. I mean, I think Tom referenced that there's a resource component to this, from the mobile sign to the yearly, what are we calling it, a grant? A grant. So, I mean, I think we have to do some more digging. This is what the taxpayers asked us to do, to find alternative ways of getting revenue for the town. I understand that it's gonna be, some people are gonna have concerns about it, so there's two areas that I would want to get more information from, particularly from the residents who are most near it, and I believe Attorney Robbins spoke to getting that, some feedback from the abutters, right? And then this might be something that we can send a quick survey about to kind of measure the pulse of the town, especially since we haven't had something like this. It seems like Jeff referenced that there's been some initial talks, but nothing ever really came to fruition or got in front of a board like this. So I'll reserve, whether or not I think that this is a great idea until we get some more information, but I think that it's worth pursuing a little further to get more information. So,
Hey, thanks, Sean. You
Yeah.
well?
I agree with what Sean said.
All right, that's easy. You're okay? I am also in support. I think it's a nice opportunity. I'm particularly keen to make use of this mobile board, or a board of some nature for us. And I appreciate you coming up with all this information. You did a lot of due diligence ahead of time, so I understand it's going to be a long road ahead of us, but wish you the best of luck. Tom, what do you think?
No, I think it's a great opportunity for us to look into. And I think I'll want to spend a little bit more time with some of the things that already came up, sort of the appropriate content gate. What happens if a resident has a concern with something they see up there, what's the resolution process, stuff like that. But I think we can find good solutions for that.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, are we ready to transition, Tom?
You're doing a great job, Chris.
Well, you promised me you would take over, so I paced myself accordingly. I'm now,
Okay.
I'm done.
All right, you did it. Well done. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, we are, for those that are only listening in, we've now switched the chairship back with gratitude to us. Okay, next item is our 7:40 item, which is annual town meeting. And I think I heard our wonderful moderator earlier, so glad that she's here with us.
And Dan, if you want to come up as well. Thank you.
And I see that we...
Feel free to take Jeff's seat or sit with the moderator, whatever you prefer.
Sit with the moderator.
Great.
There we go. So Kristen, what, I see that we have the chief here. It would be great to hear his take on the kiosk bylaw. Is there anything else that you feel like we should spend extra time on here before we go through and take positions? Just for members of the public, this is maybe the third or fourth public meeting where we've gone through these in various levels of detail. I'll certainly ask the board if there's anything they would like to dig into and get more content on, but just since we've been through these.
I believe that you've been previewed on almost all of these. We did finally get Community Preservation Committee recommendations, so those are a new item. You've previewed the Operations Analyst under Article 11. A lot of these are standard articles that you would see. I will note that under the capital, Article 9, and also Also, under Article 18, we are not ready for the Pleasant Street Patton Road sidewalk project, so we would vote to have that, to not recommend approval or to dismiss those articles. But other than that, unless there's any specific requests for additional commentary besides the digital kiosk, we're happy to oblige.
Since we do have some new content for Article 10, first let me ask the board. So what I'm thinking is we'll just, for benefit of the members of the public, we'll share what the community preservation, community recommendations are. So we'll take a look at those. And I would like to hear from the chief. Is there anything else that people want to get extra information on tonight?
I'm trying to think of what the public might really want to hear about.
We also are doing the League of Women Voters event on March 19th, where we'll go into greater detail as well, but we're happy to do that tonight as well.
Yeah, certainly we direct the members of the public to join that event. It's a great event where a lot of detail, sort of a recap of all the detail that's been covered in various meetings will come in a nice condensed form at that meeting. So,
If I recall correctly, that is videotaped and will be available on WestfordCAT for later viewing.
Yes.
great. Well, why don't we start at the top then and go through, and I think, Kristen, you can correct me, but I think what we are looking for is a motion to recommend, a motion to not recommend, or
Taking no position.
taking no position. And in the case of number 18, I think that's a motion to dismiss, as opposed to not recommend. Okay. Great. Let's start at the top. So
All right.
first article is to accept town reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend.
Okay.
And we do not need to do roll call anymore, as all five of you are in the
Okay.
same.
And do you want a second again, just for?
Second.
You second, okay. Fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 2 is to approve fiscal year 2026 budget supplemental appropriations and transfers. Do I have a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend.
So there are 3 motions to this?
Four motions.
4 motions, I apologize.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want Dan to go through all 4.
Thank you for doing that, yeah.
Dan, you want to just give a brief overview of all 4 motions?
Sure. The first one is the appropriation for free cash that we have at most town meetings. The one on here for snow and ice for $550,000, that figure was before the blizzard from this past couple days. So we may be revisiting this prior to town meeting if we find ourselves falling short, if we have additional storms too. For the waste disposal services is the startup money for the pay-as-you-throw program to basically get some of the bags in stores and to pay for a portion of the containers, what are we calling those?
Carts.
Carts, thank you. And then for risk management, this is to fund our Medicaid health insurance for $290,000. We did have a 14.5% increase to the plan this year, so this is to make sure that we're solvent through the end of the fiscal year. Second motion is for Recreation Enterprise for $90,000. Basically, their youth programs are taking off, and basically we handle all the administrative work for them and then charge 20% on top of it. So what we're recommending is to appropriate an additional $90,000 from retained earnings so they can continue operating those programs throughout the year, and we can earn the revenue on top of it. So this is a very safe amount we're doing here to make sure that they can continue those offerings. Third motion looks very complicated, but this is doing 2 things here. Basically, what we're doing is we want to pay off the Plain Road and the Carlisle Road sidewalks. We use Newport mitigation funds to fund most of the construction costs. So really, for the Plain Road sidewalk, we've only spent $95,000 on a $600,000 appropriation or authorization to borrow. So it doesn't make a whole ton of sense to borrow that amount. We just want to transfer funds to pay it off. And the same with the Carlisle Road sidewalk, which came in at $85,000. Now, to fund those 2 projects, which total $180,000, we're going to use $166,000 change from free cash. And then we have a couple of old borrowed capital projects that have been completed. One is the engineering master plan from FY14, which is still on the books. Because we're not allowed to close that out year end, we have to transfer it to a similar capital project. And then we have the remaining $3,200 from the Oak Hill and Plain Road improvement project that will, this cleans up our books and it makes our accountants very happy, so.
Thanks, Dan. Yep, Chris?
I don't know if this is going to come up at town meeting, but you're right, this is a little confusing, and I think, based off of some of the comments we heard about the Nutting Road Fields situation where we wanted 2 million and then we came back for $1 million, and now here we have projects where we're asking for over $1 million, but nope, they were really only 170,000. I think we're gonna need to explain that a little bit. So, you just said Newport mitigation.
Yeah.
I know what that means, but I can guarantee 99% of the people at town meeting have no clue what you're talking about. So I think a sentence or two at town meeting to clarify what magic is going on here from an accounting perspective would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, great point.
And the fourth motion.
Yeah.
Or did you have a question on the third motion?
No, let's go on to the fourth.
All right, the fourth motion is for the design of the Pond Brook and Blue Brook culvert. It was originally authorized $500,000 in debt. We want to apply retained earnings from stormwater to actually pay that off because it came in less than anticipated. And moving forward, we want to get in the habit of paying for the design for these culvert replacements out of retained earnings and then bonding for the larger projects.
Any questions about those?
Sorry,
Thanks for reading through. Oh, Tim, Chris.
Sorry, one more question. Is it necessary to label this as a supplemental amount? Is that the required legal terminology? Because when I see that, it seems to me like you guys we're asking for an additional $248,000 on top of the $500,000 that we originally had asked for. I'm wondering if we could clarify that a little bit better by not saying supplemental, but if that's the required way we have to say it,
So
write it.
they are additional funds being appropriated, so I don't think it's incorrect. However, the plan would be to never use that $500,000 and permanently bond it. So if we make that clear, I think that makes sense. So it's avoiding a debt payment with interest in the future.
That will probably clear it up. Thank you.
And I should mention, if the public is taking a look at the Finance Committee spot, do we just want to recap what the Finance Committee, our partners in the Finance Committee voted on these?
Yes, the Finance Committee voted to recommend, actually, no, they're taking an article on Thursday.
Yes, they have 3 articles left to recommend, 1, 2, and 10.
So it's our normal practice to first hear what our fellow committees have recommended, so maybe we could keep doing that going forward. And then, and ask for it, so on me. For this one, how much time do we have to take a position? Because I think in general, we prefer to hear the findings from our Finance Committee colleagues
So you
before taking a
could
position.
take a position on March 10th. It would not be ready for the mailing for the FinCom book, correct?
I think we have enough time, so the school committee is moving their recommendations to the 9th,
So we could hold, if you'd like to hold until March 10th for this one, we could do that. And you would hear from, the Finance Committee is voting their recommendation this Thursday evening.
So I'm interested in what the board thinks, but it's been our practice to get their recommendation first, so we have that on board before we make our recommendation.
I'd like the recommendation.
Okay, so why don't we not take a position? So thank you for all of the slowing down and going through it carefully, because it seems like we are going to wait till the 10th to take a position on this one. Okay, so I think we're on to Article 3. Any questions about the perchlorate expense? So in keeping with that, if there's any change or anything that we want to definitely draw people's attention to, let's make sure we do it. I don't think that's the case for this one. For Article 3, it's been the same as we've seen before.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recommend. And our colleagues did recommend, you can see right there.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Article 4. I don't think there's been any changes to that one. We can see our Finance Committee colleagues voted. When will we get the clean energy and sustainability? We already mentioned the school committee.
March 11th.
So that'll be after. I don't know what the sense of the board is here, but I would feel comfortable proceeding with this one. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 5. This one's a doozy.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit more complicated. Town meeting did vote to authorize $1.1 million in June of 2022 for the Cameron Senior Center HVAC project. We went out to bid and the bids came up much, much higher, and we decided not to pursue it. With the assistance of Jeff Goodwin and Mike Edwards, the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, as well as the Council on Aging, we've explored another technology, which would be a one-for-one replacement that would require an additional $900,000 for a total appropriation of $2 million for the HVAC project. And if you would like additional information on that, Mike can give that to you, whatever the desire of the board is.
So I think we've been aware of this project before, and the fact that it's come in far above budget. And we can see the Finance Committee and Capital Planning Committee approve. Any questions or additional input we need from the board side of this one? If not, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Article 6. I think we've covered this one before, but maybe just, this is a little bit, just because this is a tiny bit complicated, I keep getting questions about this. Maybe just quickly explain.
So I'll start,
what
I'll
this
turn it
is.
over to Mike if necessary. So as you're aware, the last town meeting voted to authorize to place solar panels on the Blanchard Middle School new roof. Because the town of Westford will not be owning the panels and Moresco will be owning the panels, there's a requirement to have a payment in lieu of taxes to offset the one-for-one cost of that private property taxation. What did I miss?
No, you got most of it. I think it's actually a requirement that they would pay personal property taxes. We would do a pilot to get them out of that, because essentially everything that they pay in taxes, they would add to our rate. So this lessens what ultimately they would pay us through a pilot, and then they would charge it back to us on the rate, which is fractions of a penny.
Right, so this is effectively an ability to not charge ourselves.
It is a net wash. There's no charge at all at the end of the day.
Any questions on that one? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any questions on number 7? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 8, I think we heard last time about a little bit of information about the prudent investor rule, so thank you for that. Any new questions or follow-up questions on that one? On number 8? I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 9, any additional questions on capital appropriations?
So there are several motions here. Just want to note, capital planning did vote to recommend all unanimously except for the areas where it is denoted. If there was not a unanimous vote. Again, we are taking out one of the sidewalk projects that is not ready, the Patton Road sidewalk project. So this is the first motion. Second motion is to not expend the town hall parking lot funds as we're currently going through master planning for all of our facilities, and use that funding for DPW vehicles, replacement and equipment. The third motion is for ambulance enterprise thermal imaging cameras, and that'll come out of the enterprise account. That's why it's a separate motion. The fourth motion is for, just trying to get my bearings straight, water enterprise account items. That's why it's a separate motion. Fifth motion is out of the stormwater enterprise account. Sixth motion is related to the Beacon Street roof, and this requires a 2/3 majority vote for borrowing, so that is why it's a separate motion. And then the seventh motion is for the Littleton Road widening project, where the town was awarded $500,000 from the MBTA Community Catalyst Fund. We are asking for $650,000. This is for the design, and then the state would fund the construction costs for the applicable construction items. And then,
So on that one, the Finance Committee discussion, I don't know if anyone had a chance to watch the Finance Committee, but I think some of the concerns there from the members in dissent were questions about what should be the state obligation versus what should be the town obligation. Is that a fair
yes.
summary? So not necessarily a concern about the project, but about sort of, shouldn't the state be responsible for this? Just to give voice to their concern. Okay, sorry, let's go to the eighth.
And then the eighth motion is the sidewalk project that we would recommend dismissal. And then finally, the ninth is for the Belleville Brook Culvert project in the amount of $1.5 million. So there are 9 motions in capital. One would be recommending to dismiss, and then the others, we'd be looking for your recommendations this evening.
Okay. There's a lot there. Any questions people have on these, or things people are concerned members of the public might struggle with?
Under the 9th motion, you have pedestrian safety committee Was that supposed to be under the 8th motion, perhaps?
It was supposed to be under the
Okay.
8th motion, so we will change that, thank you.
It's a lot. It's-
So there was the one motion that was not unanimous from Finance Committee that we discussed. It was unanimous across all from the capital planning.
There was one, Mike, if you could go back to
Let's
the
go back to
chart.
that one.
That was the fire station.
Yes, 51 Main Street
Okay.
stabilization project.
Do you want to speak to what the concerns were from the folks that voted against? I didn't actually watch
I'm
that.
trying to recall. I think some thought that we would be better off just taking down the building or letting it sit another year. I don't want to speak for them. It was
Okay.
a month or so ago, so I might not be recalling things.
Okay. In other meetings, we've discussed other pathways we could take with that building, so unfortunately, there's no choice that isn't going to cost us something, so, okay, thank you. for that.
Tom?
Yep.
Again, I find this a little confusing. So we go through, four motions, fifth motion, seven motions, and then you have the Finance Committee recommends 6-2. So that, we've just talked about is really, that recommendation is related to the 7th motion. So there's no FinCom.
Can you go down to the very bottom?
There's-
There actually is a note at the very bottom. We can be more clear if you'd like. So it says at the very bottom of all the motions that these are the recommendations unless otherwise stated.
Oh, I see, yep, yeah, I think that's tough. I don't know if printing it under every motion is important, but it is a little confusing.
Yeah, so for the 8th, you've got Finance Committee recommends dismissal, I see. Different motion, okay.
I think we've done it both ways in the past. One reason is we try to save paper and
Yeah.
space. The other reason we try to be clear to the public, so we would take your suggestions under advisement for sure.
The way it actually goes through is presented, as a question for the moderator, the way it actually happens in the meetings, we go section by section.
I do think it would be much clearer if it was below each of
Each
the
motion.
motions.
I think so too, because
Yeah.
if the discussion is centering around that one and the public is interested in what the board's
And
said about that
people
one.
look at this even in advance
Yeah.
of the meeting to think about what they're going to do. So I think it's important for them to have that information in hand as soon as the motions booklet comes out.
Sure, we can do that. Dan,
Okay,
you-
thanks, Chris, I think that does help. Okay, so with that formatting amendment, any other questions about, people have before we want to move to making a recommendation? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
With the 8th motion, would you make a motion to dismiss? Recommend?
Oh,
we
good point.
would, we would. Okay, so as amended, do I have a motion to dismiss for the 8th motion?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Thank you for that catch, please.
Good catch. Okay, next up is Article 10. If we could just share these recommendations, just because at least in our meeting we haven't. shared
And
this.
Bob Jeffries, the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, is on the line. Bob, would you like to take the lead here, or would you like us to do that?
Don't see Bob.
While we're getting Bob connected. Bob,
I'll ask him to unmute.
yeah, please sound up, Bob, once you're here, but while we're waiting, if people can just look through the list and if you have any questions.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Bob.
Gotcha, Bob. Welcome, Bob.
Yeah, what I'm gonna, it's very brief. We have 17 applications this year, which is an all-time record, I believe. And we're starting out, our fund balance right now, after you take out the mandatory, is $4,274,000 plus. And we're looking at a total of $4,818,000 in requests, in effect. Now, we've reduced that because the First Parish Church is actually in 2 phases, so I don't know whether you're showing 1,041,000, but it's actually, we've reduced that request to 591,000. Which means we're actually looking for a total of $3,567,000. that makes sense.
Okay. Thanks, Bob, and thanks as always for the work of the committee. Any questions from the board? Yep, Chris?
So we have a member of the Historic Commission here, as well as he's a member of the Community Preservation. I would like to hear just a little bit about the town hall slate roof replacement, because I haven't heard anything really about it. It's a big item. Is that something?
Yeah, please, if we could invite you up here and please share. Now, you're not necessarily, well, you are the applicant, so it'd be great.
And we're happy as staff to discuss that as we've talked about the capital
I
plan.
mean, my assumption is people are going to ask, that's a big ticket item. Like, why aren't we just putting regular asphalt shingles up there, or something that's cheaper?
Yeah, well, actually, and Bob Jeffries probably could address this as well. But the committee really felt we need to replace it with slate roof. This is a historic building. That's what it was. And we think we were pretty strong in feeling that it should be replaced in kind. I mean, I think that's what the committee would recommend, absolutely.
Both the Historic Commission and Community Preservation?
Correct, correct.
And my
Yes.
understanding is that the lifespan of a slate roof is 100 years, where a more synthetic roof is 30 to 50 years, correct?
50 years is what the manufacturers state, but there hasn't been one around that long.
Right.
So we
What do we
really
have up
don't
there
know. Slate.
We have slate, and we
Yes.
redid Town Hall when?
But that's not a lot of that is the original and reused slate.
Okay.
We actually don't know the age of the slate that's up there. It's at least 2 different iterations, 2 different installations over time.
And as part of this project, is there going to be any effort to deal with the ice situation that we face? I think particularly on this side, with, there's no the overhang and the snow just comes down on people walking out of the building.
We'll be looking at some different design alternatives, including also synthetic slate as part of that. We actually have to engage an architect to do structural reinforcement design as well as cupola design for the restoration of that. We're going to pair the design of this with the museum project as well. So we're going to try to get the same architect to do both. So Jeff and I are prepared to put out an RFP for those services. And that'll be something we talk about with the architect.
I have one comment on that.
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. The funding is not for synthetic slate. so
Correct.
That would go away unless there was a revote.
I see. So just so I understand, Bob, so if an architect or some other group finally recommends that part of it be synthetic, that would come out of this because it's not what was voted on as historic, right?
Yeah, we're funding the authentic restoration.
Right. Otherwise, it'd be a repair.
One thing I would add about synthetic slate is we don't even know if it'll go 50 years. It hasn't been around long enough to know.
None of them have been around, yeah. So
Okay.
Is this total cost?
that's
Including
total
design?
cost, including the design.
So what's the construction cost, you think?
On that, I believe I'd have to. Is Jeff Goodwin on the
Three-quarters of
line?
it?
He is on the line, I can promote him 1 minute.
Jeff has some more specifics on everything, but we do have some pretty significant structural issues on that roof that we're going to have to deal with as well.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much for coming up and speaking with us.
So I just want to note that the Finance Committee will be voting their recommendations on Thursday evening for this, so if you would like to wait until March
Okay.
10th, you may.
Well, thank you for the discussion. How do folks feel about observing our convention
I would like to
of waiting for our colleagues?
I'd like to wait.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, on to number 11. Let's see. Amend the wage and classification plan. I don't think there's anything new here from our last review.
There's nothing new here. This is to implement a new position, operations analyst, in the Band 3 pay and classification scale. It was reviewed and recommended by the Personnel Advisory Committee and the Finance Committee. We do have the job description and a memo describing the position duties in the town meeting packet.
Okay, and I know Mike's had a number of conversations with people about what
Yes.
exactly this position will be doing, so I'd encourage anyone who has any concerns or questions to contact Mike and ask him about it. Yes,
I would just add that it's available on the website, right, under the
Oh,
trash and
yes.
recycling program, there's a memo and.
Yep.
Actually, you can get probably the most complete information is on the town meeting documents.
Oh, even better.
So,
yeah, please make that your first step.
Yes.
Before you call Mike. But I know lots of people, after reading that, Still had some questions, if you could please.
Loves questions.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Should have mentioned that Finance Committee colleagues voted in favor. Article 12, authorize revolving funds. Is there, it looks like there's a change to this.
We are increasing the lease of town buildings from 150,000 to 200,000 and senior center programs from 65,000 to 90,000. Dan, do you want to explain that in further detail, please?
Sure. During the capital process, Jeff Goodwin brought forward 2 projects that are slated to be paid through the town building lease. They're fire escapes for the Frost School and the Oak Hill Road School, 170 Plain. And then for the senior center programs, their contributions have been increasing, but they've been limited on their expenditure limit, so they could offer more programs if we raise the expenditure for our seniors.
And Dan, just for the public, just things for the first time, this is not authorizing new spending. This is basically an accounting guardrail modification.
Yes, so revenue comes in, they can only spend what they have, and then this is the max amount they can spend during the year.
Right, so this is a control measure change just to reflect the good news reality of where they are. Okay. Yep.
Sorry, quick question. Maybe Dan, this is for you. Why is school parking and school bus transportation listed here and not some of the other revolving accounts that the school has?
There's different type of revolving accounts, so back when we initially set these up, we did it through Chapter 53E and a half in the same year, and so now they have to come back every year, where the other accounts for the schools do not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for number 12? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 13, I forgot.
That's it, fine. The comment.
Oh, the Finance Committee, our colleagues Finance Committee support unanimously, thanks. Okay, Article 13.
So Article 13 is to approve the fiscal year 27 operating budget. Mike, if you wouldn't mind just scrolling down, the operating budget comes from several sources. We had a series of 4 budget hearings with the Finance Committee through January and February. Dan, if you could just give an overview to the select board of those 2 items that we made an adjustment to related to the budget, and then we can answer any other questions.
Sure, we did receive the Neshoba Tech Assessment, and we originally had a 5% increase in there, but it ended up being about $43,000 higher, 41, around that area. And then with the technology budget, one of the Finance Committee questions spurred us to look back at an account. And we worked with the technology director, and we were able to reduce that account by $5,500. So that offset the portion of the amount that for the Neshoba Tech Assessment. And then it wasn't that significant, and our licenses and permits are tracking very well this year. So we just made an adjustment to that revenue to offset the increase.
Okay.
So we're still balanced.
So based on basically updated information, we made a couple of relatively minor changes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. And for members of the public, if you're interested, you can find lots and lots of very smart, well thought out questions if you want to watch the Finance Committee meeting. So much of this has got many layers of detail, good questions behind it if you want to dig in.
And the full budget document, over hundreds of pages, is on the budget page of the town website, as well as under Article 13 on the town meeting page.
Okay. Other questions about, or any questions about Article 13? Let's scroll down. I know the answer that our Finance Committee colleagues voted in support.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay, perfect. I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then lots and lots of detail about what's in it. While we're getting there, Article 14 is to appropriate Chapter 90 local transportation funds.
And this is a standard article. We do not have the exact dollar amount from the state at this point in time, which is generally the case for our town meeting.
Okay. And our colleagues on the Finance Committee supported this. Any questions about this? I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 15, appropriate funds from the water enterprise, other post-employment benefits. Oh boy, Dan, OPEB.
OPEBs, yes.
Okay, just in a sentence or two, you want to explain what this is?
Sure. So the water enterprise OPEB account is fully funded. They did that 'several years ago. So this serves as a model on how the OPEB is supposed to work. So the $44,806 is paying for the health insurance and life insurance for our current water retirees. And then through the water budget, we are transferring $30,000 to cover the normal costs or the accrued costs for the year back to the water OPEB account. So years from now, when the regular OPEB account is fully funded, this is how it should work.
Thank you for that. Our Finance Committee colleagues support this. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We're getting shy. Okay, number 16, authorize select board to accept easements.
This is a traditional article
Yeah.
to cover all unanticipated easements.
Yeah. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 17, authorize select board to accept easements on along near Forge Village Road.
This is for the Bell Culvert
Yeah.
replacement project, which you saw the funding above.
No changing there. And I don't, our Finance Committee members probably didn't take a position on this.
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 18 is authorize the select board to accept easements for the Pleasant Street and Patton Road sidewalk project. Any questions there?
We'd ask to dismiss this article.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to dismiss.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 19, authorize select board to grant easements to National Grid at J.B. Fletcher Library. Any
This
questions?
is for a
on this one?
transformer on the J.B. Fletcher Library project.
None of the boards have looked at it yet?
I don't believe that they voted yet on that. They didn't vote last week on this
No.
one? No, not yet.
But you guys have approved the license agreement.
Yeah.
that is providing the temporary access.
And they have seen this as part of the project.
Yeah,
They're
they-
aware that it's
yeah.
going to occur.
Yeah, just because people have been so, just for the public, the Board of Trustees and the Permanent Town Building Committee are sort of the drivers behind this whole thing, so they're very well informed. On that basis, I would be comfortable moving forward with a.
And it is the location of the
recommendation.
existing transformer. They just couldn't find the original easement.
Sure.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 20, authorize digital-only legal notices. I think this is the same language as we saw last time.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any questions about this? Yep, Chris?
So I know WestfordCAT representatives came before us and asked some questions or had a proposal. And you met with them?
I did, yes.
And so does this satisfy what they were hoping for to some degree? I know it's probably not perfect, but.
It does. So I met with Sarah Fletcher. So she was looking to specifically add WestfordCAT to this general bylaw. As I discussed with town council and others, I was not specifically comfortable with naming a specific news entity. So if WestfordCAT is considered a newspaper of local or general circulation, that could be one option for us to advertise. So that's item I. A newspaper's website, that could be item 2 or II. So they would fall under this criteria if we chose to advertise in these ways. And they seem satisfied with that.
Super, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
And I just want to note, the Finance Committee did take a recommendation on this because we are spending about $20,000 per year on legal advertisements. Additionally, developers or homeowners who are applying to zoning board, planning board, or conservation commission are spending additional money over that. So it would be a cost savings to have digital notifications not only to the town of Westford, but to those private entities as well.
I think the Economic Development Committee also was interested in taking a position on this. If they haven't done that yet, they could do that, and would that be announced in town?
We could announce that at town meeting,
Okay.
yes.
But for what we have so far is before us.
Yes.
Yep, Chris?
So if this passes, what would be our first move where those notices would be published? Do we have a game plan?
So our first move is that we actually have to file with the general court, so the legislature, to get home rule petition. And then they would go through their process, they would come back, then the select board would notice what our digital notification process would be. My recommendation would be that it would be our town website.
And it would take us how long for that whole process to come?
So several towns have gone through the process, several are in the process. I believe it's a 6 to 8 month process if we fall in the cycle.
Okay.
I don't know where we're going to fall in our cycle, so I would say a year max.
Okay, but unlike other things that we've looked at, there's a sort of well-worn pathway of this
Yes,
going through and being approved.
3 or 4 towns have been approved, and 3 or 4 towns are in the cycle right now.
Great.
So it has been a proven method.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Since we have our chief here, Chief, would you,
Right.
if you'd like to come and just help us understand a little bit about.
Been waiting all meeting for this now.
Yes, yeah. So back in about October, I was approached by Detective Sergeant Rogers, who's here as well. He's very well versed in this type of scam activity that a lot of our senior and a lot of our seniors really have been impacted by this type of scams. So within the past 3 years, the town of Westford residents have been scammed out of approximately $600,000 using these Bitcoin crypto ATMs, which operate very similar to a traditional ATM, except there's a lot more prompts asking you several questions. But what we found through our investigations is a lot of times the person that's being scammed is being placed under a lot of pressure. A lot of times it's impersonation of a police officer or another law enforcement figure that's pressuring them to go through these prompts on the phone while they're doing it. One of the biggest things that kind of came to light is there are other towns that had started to push forward with some of these bylaws, and I think that's what originally caught Sergeant Rogers' attention, that we had nothing in place to protect our vulnerable residents within the community from this type of fraud. It's very prevalent in the country. There's several states that are trying to enact laws currently now to fight it, including Massachusetts, but it's been in committee. So we wanted to put this forward because the anonymity that this provides the scammers is we've never experienced that before. And these types of scams are incredibly difficult for us to investigate. A lot of times if we are not notified within the first day, that money's gone. In the off chance that we are notified within the first 24 hours, sometimes we can seize the money in that Bitcoin wallet before it's sent overseas. But once it's sent overseas, it's gone. So this is a whole new way to commit these types of scam crimes, where even the district attorney's offices are way behind the 8 ball on even how to prosecute these and investigate them. So what we found is even when we seize those, we can't get that back to the victim itself, because what happens is as soon as they make that transaction, they go through the prompts, they basically waive their rights to have that money back. And once they pay the ATM company, the Bitcoin ATM company, the crypto ATM, it now goes to a Bitcoin wallet. And once it enters that wallet, that's where they can access it. But the victim at that point then becomes the Bitcoin ATM, crypto ATM company, because they're the ones that are now going to be out the money, if you kind of follow, right? So it's almost a double victim when it comes through. And it's the federal partners that we have, unless it's an extreme amount of money, typically $1 million threshold, we won't get any cooperation with them to investigate it internationally. So what we've just proposed is to ban the crypto ATMs within the community, and those places that continue to operate one will have a fine based on how often. There's a 30-day grace period for them to remove them. Trying to think if there's any. And the other big thing is that they charge a 13% service charge just to purchase a Bitcoin through the cryptocurrency ATMs. Not really a good investment in the first place, because there's still a lot of other ways, legitimate ways, that people can purchase Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So in order to protect our vulnerable residents in this town, we think it's important for us to take this step to address these types of digital crimes that are incredibly difficult to investigate and have dramatically impacted our residents in the town. So we ask that you support this bylaw. And it has gone through town council, we've the bylaw review committee as well. So we have had plenty of discussion on it in the past.
Yeah, my aunt was scammed of $100,000, but because it was through her bank and credit cards, we were able to get back.
Yeah.
In this case, you can't.
Yeah. So this is one of those ones where there's next to no consumer protection once they accept that final purchase. They essentially end up, it's almost like they're waiving their entire rights, even though they're under pressure.
Yeah, so, sorry, his question. Noel? Yeah.
How many of these do we have in town right now?
I'll let her.
Since 2023 till 2025, we've had 6 with approximately, the victim's average age was 67 years old, and the total loss was, as the chief said, was right around $542,122.
How many ATMs do we have?
And we have approximately 6
ATMs
in town.
So it wouldn't prevent a private entity to have one of these crypto ATMs on their property. I would imagine like a social club or something would be able to have those, but.
Any questions for the chief? Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just clarify what you just said. You're saying that
What?
separate entities could still allow these?
We can't prevent like a private transaction through other means.
So what does this prevent?
So this would prevent businesses in town. So essentially what businesses do is they get paid from the crypto ATM companies to house a crypto ATM within their business. If somebody owned one of their own, I would imagine in, say, the Fletcher Club, and there was we were trying to have this conversation with Greg Corbo about how public and private, or where public has right of access. So that would be the main difference. If public has right of access to any of these businesses, they have access, whereas if it's restricted access and only,
So it's public access because we have bylaw jurisdiction. We could do
Correct.
this and prevent it. Okay. Other questions from the board? Yep, Sean?
Yeah, just some thoughts. In my professional life, I get probably a call once a month about someone who's pursuing, looking for some bankruptcy options after a scam like this. There's, particularly with the Bitcoin machines, as the chief pointed out, once it gets zapped, it's just completely gone. Unlike if you're using a credit card or a insured ATM card, there's no alternative avenues to have the vendor try to claw back the money. So, in my experience, I've never heard of someone who's interested in trading Bitcoin who's actually used a machine like this. I mean, it's very easy to access and to purchase Bitcoin online through like safe avenues like Coinbase and things like that. So my understanding is that these are almost exclusively used for like fraud. They're often used in scamming purposes. So I'm all for getting rid of all of them. I think it's ahead of the curve. I don't think you'll see these anywhere in 10 years. So I appreciate it, Chief, and I'm all for it.
I would also just like to say, if I missed it at the beginning, the City of Waltham's crypto ATM bylaw has also been reviewed and approved by the Attorney General's office. So, and that was one of the municipalities that we based the bylaw on. So there's a great chance that if it is voted through at town meeting, the AG will also accept it.
Thanks. Chris?
So besides Waltham, what other communities do you know of that have passed this bylaw like this?
Past was Waltham and Gloucester. We do have Ipswich was in the process, South Hadley, Woburn, and Danvers. We're all currently looking at their own bylaws as well.
Okay.
And that's from 2-3 months ago, so the list may even be greater at this point.
Any other questions for the chief?
I just want to say thank you for being so proactive
Absolutely.
with this and protecting our residents.
Great work.
We're able to do it because we have great personnel.
Good. Thank you both.
Thank
I
you.
will entertain a motion to recommend.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was number 20. Number 21. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was number 21. Number 22.
Thanks, guys.
So this is up to the pleasure of the board. Usually with a citizen's petition, that's the most direct form of democracy. They're going directly to the public, as is the right to get their read. And so many times, there may be exceptions, the select board does not take a position because the members that are there to vote don't need to, us to recommend something or not recommend something. They're actually being asked for their opinion directly. So we could either decide to take a position or decide not to take a position on this.
I would say we stay with convention and not take a position.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested in any other voice. I don't know, Kristen, if you've got a feeling. I mean, it's obvious, since we're proposing this program,
Right.
what our position is. But I do feel like it's people's right to bring these things forward, and they should have that right. Maybe, I don't know what circumstance we'd want to filter that. I'm not sure we've done it during my time on select board.
Tom,
Yeah,
just
please.
while you're having your discussion, I've gotten several questions about the consequences, what the actual consequences would be if this did pass at town meeting.
Why don't we go through those, because there probably are some consequences that would make us feel like we had to take a position. So I don't think there are any in this case, but theoretically there could be some.
Yeah, I don't think it's up to me to answer that question, but I think people are asking if this citizens petition is approved at town meeting, what effect, if any, would that have on the program that it's trying to rescind, the votes that it's trying to rescind or replace?
So this would be advisory. This would come back to the select board as information that is there at town meeting. At that point, we'll have already voted on the budget and the position that would enable this. So my understanding, and Kristen, you can correct me, is that if town meeting were to vote in favor of this, it would come back to us as a recommendation, but the means to execute it and carry it out would have already been voted on, either favorably or not favorably, and we could then further deliberate about whether we felt that input at town meeting meant that we should reconsider direction.
Right. It is a non-binding vote,
Right.
but it could give you direction one way or the other.
If it was 99% against for some good reason we've never thought of, I'd have to think we would take that on board and want to think about it. But to answer your question, it would not necessarily have any immediate effect on the implementation of this plan.
I think that's the answer, that's the question people are asking. I'm not sure they understand why it would have no effect. I think maybe one step further on, I believe this has been discussed with town council, and I think if you could explain that.
I'm sorry, so Angela, beyond the fact that by its very nature, the citizens petition would be a recommendation to the board. It would not trigger any activity by itself. Things that would trigger activity by itself would relate to things related to the budget, or things that would come up in earlier articles that control funding or control creation of there are many things in here that are the tools or the sources of funds that we would use to exercise policy, but a citizen's petition only has a recommendation effect.
And your select board, you have the statutory authority to establish a pay-as-you-throw system, so it is not required to go to town meeting.
I think that's what you're looking for. That's the sentence
So,
that
okay.
we should be.
Yes.
That the select board has the authority to do it, and town meeting doesn't have the authority to say, you can't do that. So, yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Right, and anything that we actually need town meeting to vote on comes to town meeting. So a little
This
bit-
is your executive branch authority.
A little bit recursive, but yeah. So yes, thanks for clarifying that. So if the question is, don't you need to get a town vote for this? The answer is no, this falls within the select board authority.
That is correct.
Statutory
authority, correct.
Thank you, I think that's.
Does that help? Okay.
I think that will clarify for many people.
Okay, so back to the issue of.
I'm sorry, Tom.
Yep.
Is that on our FAQs on our webpage for this? And would it help to have it on there, or
I think it would absolutely help.
do you think we could do that, Mike?
Yeah, we wanted to talk about that in public with you all first,
Okay.
but we can see if we can develop an FAQ.
So I think to answer the question, is a pay-as-you-throw program as described, does that require a town meeting vote for implementation? I think a useful thing would be, no, it does not. Power to implement fees of this type fall under select board statutory authority. I think that's a good, clear statement. Okay, back to the issue of whether we feel this is something that we want to take a position on or not.
I feel comfortable not taking the position on this.
Okay.
We've already taken a position.
Yeah.
I think so. It could very well come up at the meeting that someone says, why didn't the select board take a position? And I think what I would answer is, first of all, it's very clear what the select board's intent is from everything that's already happened in this meeting. It's absolutely a policy that we've supported throughout the creation. The specific question about why not on the citizen's petition, when people exercise their right to bring a question to the entire body of town meeting, it's very rare, at least in our recent history, that we would take a position. Citizens have the right to poll the will of the body, and so you don't need us to tell you what to think. If people want to know what you think, then they bring forward a citizen's petition, and we look forward to hearing the result. Or
We
something
have
like
that.
that.
I'm sorry, there was a
Yeah.
hand raised. I think the hand came down, so.
Okay. Okay, so I think it's the consensus of the board to not take a position, so I don't think we vote to not take a position. I think we just don't.
Just leave it blank.
Okay, anything else from our moderator before we let you go?
No, I'd just like to make sure that people understand that most of the information, a lot of information about all the various articles is on the town meeting page, and that people can go to that page and take a look at all the supporting documents for each article that's presented, and also that they can download the motions before the meeting so that they come to the meeting with the motions in hand on their devices if they like.
Great, thank you, and we had a chat earlier this week, and it sounds like the preparations for the town meeting are going well, and
Yes.
so gratitude for everybody who's working hard on that.
Tom, if I may.
Yep.
Do we finalize which of these articles will have a presentation as part of them? Is it just the pay-as-you-throw?
We are
related
meeting
ones?
March 18th to go over that. We want to make sure that everyone has sufficient time to prepare. March 18th will be the motions meeting where we discuss with the moderator what will have a presentation, what will not have a presentation. Our so-called dress rehearsal will be March 19th with the League of Women Voters, and then we'll be prepared on March 28th.
Well, wait a second, so how are you going to decide which ones are going to have videos on the 18th and then turn around and be ready for the League of Women Voters on the 19th?
So we won't have any videos for League of Women Voters.
Right.
We know that we are creating a video for the pay-as-you-throw program associated with the operations analyst. And we may be creating some additional outreach related to the capital item for 51 Main Street. Those are the only two that we're targeting for videos. And then the others will decide if we have a PowerPoint presentation or written or verbal presentation at town meeting.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't be so prescriptive to say videos, just some sort of lead-in.
Yes, commentary.
conversation. Yes, okay, so those two.
So we're working on that.
Okay,
now.
that makes sense, I think that.
I mean, I think the kiosk item requires lead-in commentary. So we will work with the moderator on what we think is appropriate for those items.
Since it's not an agenda item, and since it's the purview of the moderator, maybe just informationally, once you have an idea
Sure.
of what's getting shared for what, maybe if you could circulate it to the board.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
I forgot to mention one other place that is a wealth of information, and that's the FinCom booklet, which will be out and available,
Looks like March 11th now
and it'll be posted on the website.
on the website, and copies available at the
Hard-
library, town hall, senior center, and police station.
And there's just a wealth of financial information in that, just a tremendous amount. So anyone who's interested in the budget or the details about the budget, that's where they can find it.
And every single article here has an associated packet document memorandum on the town meeting webpage. We're very well prepared this year that everything has something up at this point in time for residents to get more information. We're working on the town meeting postcard. We received some additional commentary of how to make that more user-friendly and readable. So we're doing that. And CSS has started our newsflash social media campaign to get information about the articles. Last week they posted about that the warrant was up and signed, and we'll be doing subsequent information out to the residents. We'll be doing those message board signs. I think Highway has 2 available right now throughout, and the banner. So all those items are in progress right now.
Great.
And lastly, people should remember to sign up for both childcare and free transportation if they want it. They need to sign up ahead of time so that we know what to expect for childcare and free transportation. And the information about sign up is on the town moderator's page. I don't know if it's on the town meeting.
We'll double check that.
Okay.
And the survey will be going out next week to all residents. Yes, you will attend, no, you will not attend, no, I'm not sure. So we will gauge our attendance that way, which has been pretty spot on recently.
I'm not going to get the language right, but for people that need special accommodation, they would also go to the website. Is that same information there?
That's also on, I think, both the town meeting page and the moderator's page. There's an email and a phone number that they can use to request special accommodations for town meeting if they need them for some condition.
One last question. I seem to recall, was the last town meeting we had a problem with the speed of the clickers? Did we resolve that?
We're working with Nathan on that. Yeah.
We feel comfortable that it will be resolved by town
We don't feel comfortable yet. We're trying to do some testing, probably getting some high school students, a mass of high school students to test both rooms. So he's working with.
If anyone can break it.
Yeah, high school students.
The old high school students.
We're trying to do our best with that.
Okay, super.
Okay. Any other questions from the moderator? Okay. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
We're now at 8:05. I think item B is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
A, C, and D.
Okay. So review and approve the board and committee handbook.
So the select board had indicated many months ago that they were interested in providing board and committee members with an onboarding handbook and a procedural handbook. In doing research with the former town clerk and the current town clerk, we actually had a handbook that was severely outdated and went through that process to update it. We then circulated that to some of our residents who have a lot of knowledge with board and committees and with editing. Chris Barrett led the charge for that. So we feel that we're at a point where we're either going to accept additional feedback from the select board this evening, or if you would like to adopt the handbook, we can start to get that in motion and process, knowing that this would probably be an evolving document as things change over time or we learn different things. We could update this on the fly, but it's really meant to be a guiding document to educate our board and committee members or educate members of the public who are looking to become a board or committee member.
Yeah, thank you so much for your hard work on the evolving document.
Yeah,
go Chris.
I just wanted to build on what Kristen said and specifically call out Ellen Hardy and Lynn Cohen, who stepped up after we had a draft. 90% of the way there, they said, "Hey, we can make this a lot better and easier to consume." So they took it upon themselves to do some reworking of the document, which I think really paid off in terms of usability. And I also like to thank all of the chairs of the board and committee members, board and committees that responded back with comments when we put the handbook out for initial review a few months ago. A lot of those comments were very well received and have been implemented in the document. So as Kristen said, I think there's still things that we could add to it today, and it will, we'll continue to see that going forward. But I think we're at a good point now in which we can get it out there. It can be of great use for all of our hardworking volunteers, and my hope is that we continue to revisit it maybe yearly to just do a check to make sure it's covering our needs and keep it alive rather than let it languish like the last time.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you. I guess questions or comments from the board about the document itself? I know we've...
Yeah, it looked pretty good overall. Yeah.
Okay. Do people feel like we're in a position to, I guess, approve or accept the board and committee handbook and release it with the understanding that we can, as needed, come back and revise it?
I found a couple of typos.
Send those along, please,
And
John.
we can do as amended for typographical error.
But they were so minor as to, they won't affect the reading.
A couple
Okay.
Oxford commas missing.
That's right. We need the grammarian over here. Okay. Well, it sounds like we feel comfortable proceeding to approve the board and committee handbook. So, with that, I'll accept a motion to approve the board and committee handbook.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Great.
Sean, getting on board. I love it. I love it.
I was waiting for the right opportunity.
Well, you know what? That made me feel good. You did it on one of my projects, so thank you, sir.
Okay. I waited for you. Excellent. Item E is the annual town manager performance review. So for members of the public, we conduct a performance review of our town manager once a year. The timing right now is dictated by the anniversary date of Kristen's contract, although in a minute, a little bit later, we'll discuss whether we want to ultimately sync it up with the annual budget process and kind of kick that into some sort of motion that would require a modification of her contract, but we could pick that up if that's the interest of the board to enter negotiations, I guess. We had a little bit different method this year. In the past, we used a template that we used for a bunch of years. This year, we moved to a two-piece review structure. One was a number of performance and skill areas that Kristen was particularly interested in getting feedback on. That was informed by a bunch of performance reviews used by other town managers, so we kind of selected best of the best from that to come up with the key sort of performance input areas. So, and Kristen obviously helped a lot with that. We also decided we wanted to begin to put weight on our progress against our strategic plan. One of my comments when we get to talking about our individual comments for Kristen are it's actually really exciting to have a strategic plan that's this much of a living document. Oftentimes strategic plans get completed and put in a drawer and people totally forget about them. But I think we've done a good job here, and Kristen's done a great job here of making that something we keep coming back to. So the idea is we've got these two measuring sticks that we use. The thought was that ultimately it would be good to have that be 50-50, 50% sort of skills, specific skills, feedback areas, and 50% progress against the strategic plan. We've only been working with the strategic plan for 6 months, so at this time we decided we would do a 75-25 split. I should make sure I'm saying the right thing, but all of the town manager materials either are part of the packet or will become part of the packet, so it'll be available to the public. So I encourage people to take a look. A lot of thoughtful work and thoughtful feedback. At a top level, very high scores. In some cases, kind of a universal, unanimous opinion of the max score and some of the ethics areas, for example. I think universally high scores, some of the lower band of these high scores indicated places I think we all are working harder to improve on, things like communication. Again, encourage people to take a look at that, and thank you for the board members for putting time and energy to a thoughtful review. Some areas there was a little bit of a spread, and that's natural. In some areas there was sort of greater consensus, so interesting information there. And then the board members also added some specific feedback lines on sometimes each of the items, sometimes in summary, and almost everybody put in specific items under each of the strategic areas, what they feel good about, where they think we could put more focus in there. So lots and lots of input to digest, hours and hours of reading for Kristen to take a look at. But what I thought I would do is, and the compilation of all of that is in this packet. We did tabulate all the scores, which ended up being a very high average. But what I thought I'd do tonight is invite the select board members just to give a couple highlight comments from the review, just things that you want to make sure that you emphasize here with Kristen and in the public. So, I don't know, Chris, why don't I pick on you and ask you to go first?
Fantastic.
There's a couple things
Love
you
it.
want to share, highlights you want to share in particular.
Yeah, so again, this is the first time we've gone through this process in this format, so it was a little different for me. Hopefully you found the ratings helpful. Certainly looking at this, I think there's some good pieces of information and guidance just in the numbers alone. I will say that the strategic plan that we have concocted is aggressive, right? And you're doing a really good job chipping away at it. I did put the comment that I felt it was a little challenging to evaluate because some of the things didn't provide as much detail as maybe I would need to make a meaningful evaluation. I mean, that said, I still rated your performance in that area very highly. I think if there was one theme to my review, it was communication, which you and I talk about at length all the time. I'm encouraged to see how And when I say communication, we're referring to communication and engagement with the residents of Westford, not communication between myself and the town manager. You do a wonderful job keeping the select board informed. But we all know that there has been challenges with, getting better at community engagement. This last presentation from our communications consultants is indicating a different tact. So I am very interested to see how that progresses. I still think there's some other avenues we need to investigate, so I hope that you would be willing to partner with me and the board to investigate some other opportunities, knowing that you've got a million other things to do. But I still think that's probably one of our top, needs in this community, is to be able to communicate with our residents, both push out and hear back from them. And you heard that from me many times. But overall, great job. I'm just super happy to have you leading the show. Love working with you, and I hope again you get some good feedback from this review process.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
John, did you have any highlights you wanted to share?
Well, nothing negative. I mean, this is, I've seen a lot of growth in Kristen in the last year. I was particularly impressed with just your leadership and management of the organization. And then also, one of the things that was kind of a question mark in my mind was just how you were going to deal with public sector unions. And I have witnessed a really superb performance there, I think. I put down excellent on that. I think you did a great job with that.
Thank you.
I mean, both protecting the interests of the employee as well as the interests of the town. And then the Health Insurance Trust, I think you run that very well and have control of that. Then when we got to the strategic plan, the one thing I was concerned about that was the communications plan that was kind of developed and almost published, and we finally got a shot at that. And I think that's the one thing that I think needs a little bit of work. But, gave you high ratings overall, and I think you deserve that. And I think you're doing a superb job.
Thank you, John.
Well,
I agree with John. I think you're doing a fantastic job with the union, the DPW that we work with together. You're poised, and your reaction to questions is very professional, and the sign of a great leader. The way you speak and respond instead of react is wonderful. And I also agree that the communication in town, I think that is the biggest area where I'd like to see improvement, but overall I give you high scores, and I think that you're doing a fantastic job. There's one other thing. I like how proactive you're being with trainings and with the staff and yourself. I think that is very forward-thinking, getting our staff up to date on new technology, and I think that is very proactive and wonderful. And I really love the way that when you're making decisions and when you're thinking about things for the town, you have the strategic plan in the back of your mind always, and that shows in your decisions and your ideas that you bring forward. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure. Guess that's me. Yeah, I concur with what my colleagues have said so far. I think if you look at Kristen as a whole, I think you're on point. What we would expect. I'm just going to kind of jump around here, but I think that you're tremendously responsive to us, which I appreciate. Never once have I felt like there was something going on in town that I needed more information on, or that I didn't have a good grasp on going into it. So I appreciate that a lot. And I've been involved in town government indirectly for a few years now. So there's been times when things have come forward and you're kind of surprised by it. I've never felt that way. So I appreciate that. I also, I I appreciate, I love how eager you are to delegate stuff. I think that that's a sign of a good leader. It's easy for people in positions of power to say, just give it to me, I'll do it, you know, and I'll get it done. I think that you make a concerted effort to put the right people in right places and let your staff kind of champion things. Mike's been doing a tremendous, I know this isn't Mike's review, but Mike is a great example of that with the pay as you throw. I mean, he grabbed it by the horns and went with it, and you easily could have said, okay, you do the work and I'll do it, but you were happy to let him step forward with it, so I appreciate that. I think that leadership is tremendous. What else? A lot of these are hard to, the goals that we've put, it's tough to measure now, right? Because these are really decade-long things, particularly the housing options and economic growth. These are things that we can't easily determine how well they're working right now, but I feel like you've put the seeds in the right places and really put the right people in the right places to handle these, where they will hopefully come to fruition in later generations. What else? I've always found you to be professional, ethical. Some areas that I'd love to see us continue to do. Love the events with Rodenbush and the community events. I think that's something that this town has been clamoring for and begging for, especially in the wake of COVID, and keep doing them. I think that was a great opportunity, especially with partnering with Rodenbush and their lease running up and all of that. What else? A few areas that I'd like to see more from. I know we've talked about this. The educational opportunities. I think that there's. I wouldn't call it a missed opportunity because this is a relatively new plan, right? But we have an opportunity to kind of partner with the schools there, so I'd like to see more of that going forward. And I also love how we lean into groups like NIMGOG to kind of pick up the slack where we can't, right? Because we don't have a dedicated person in that sector. So yeah, overall, I mean, you can look at the numbers, but those are my thoughts, as disjointed as they may be. Thanks.
Yeah, the other things so a lot of great thoughts from my colleagues, so thank you for that. One thing I think we talked about last time, but I'm still impressed with, is the organizational structure that was a little bit different than what we'd had before, that you fought for and really made it work. I think both Mike and Jeff have done a really great job and have risen to the occasion. I was happy to support you, but wasn't at all sure that how that was going to work out because it was new to me. But I think it's worked really well. I appreciate the kind of one Westford kind of default that I think we're moving towards, and even when it's hard, like even when, because you've got two very complex organizations moving in tandem between the schools and the town, I think that like you're leaning forward to try to make it one Westford all the time, and I think that's really important and not easy to do. And if you slip or forget about it, they're so busy and everyone's going off in some direction. It's just information that we drop from each other. So I think that's important. And what I said at the top, just I think your approach to the strategic plan, another thing that I was like, well, let's see, I'm happy to support Kristen, but I've seen these, go into the desk drawer, on day 2 so often, but that's not what you've done here. I think you've really kept focus on it, and I think it can be a tremendous tool, and I think that seems to be, or not seems to be, that is the direction you're taking it, and I don't see that very often, so I'm excited about that.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for us or any feedback about the process?
I think I appreciate you, all your comments, first of all. I also want to thank all of the staff because I can't do this without them. So this is my review, obviously, but a lot of staff time and effort has gone into this, and they make me look more successful. So I appreciate them, as well as I appreciate the residents, because we take all of their feedback and try to put that into play. So in no way have I done this all by myself. There's been a collective team behind me, so I just want to recognize that in public. I do appreciate the board leaning into a new approach to the performance review. I know it's not always easy to do this in public, and came together very quickly. I think it came together well. I don't know for a next phase, if you want to get feedback from others, right, rather than just your board giving feedback, getting feedback from the public or staff. So that's something to consider. I'm not opposed to it, so something you can all talk about. And we had been a little bit light on the updates of the strategic plan. We gave a very cohesive update on the energy part, a very cohesive update on the economic development part. We are still working through those other 5 items, so that is why there was a little bit less detail in my offerings that I gave you for this review cycle, but those will be coming before the board. So I want to assure you and the public that that is coming, and we are working on it in the background. It's just not down on paper altogether. So again, just appreciate your comments and feedback. If there's anything constructive, additional that I can work on, I'm happy to talk with you here at the meeting or offline, because I always appreciate that open and honest candidacy and making Westford a better place for all. So thank you.
Good, thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, Chris.
Yes, you said something that triggered something in my mind, because I remember going through the rating, and I almost emailed you and said, I can't rate this because I think it had something to do with how what maybe your reports think of you, right? I have no idea, right? So what you just said about maybe speaking to some of the staff, I don't think, have we ever done that as a board for town manager reviews?
I'm not familiar with us doing like a 360 style review, if that's what you mean, like going to customers, being residents, going to staff.
Yeah.
So it's,
I don't know. It makes it more complicated.
Sure, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great suggestion, and thank you for everything you do, and thank you for the feedback on this. The hour's getting a little bit late, but the reason that we've talked in the past about, I will circle back to like what do we want to include in the review. The reason we've in the past thought it probably made sense to sync up Kristen's review with the annual cycle of the town is that we set goals for the year, and then that's what we're measuring, and that's what we're looking at. There's a really good reason we didn't start that way, because we started on the anniversary of your contract. I think we've talked before, and I think I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but in past conversations, I think you at least saw some logic to moving your review from being the anniversary of the contract to being sort of synced up with the town calendar.
Yeah, I've laid this out a little bit. I haven't presented it fully. One of the things that I would like to preserve, though, is that my review be done before there is a change on the select board. So if it links up with the fiscal year, there's a challenge because there is a potential for new board members to start in May and only have a 2-month period to work together. So I don't feel that that's valuable for either myself or for the board. But I do see that we could potentially link up the goal setting to be in a better period of time that then we can integrate into the budget, and you can integrate into the review as well. So let me get that time frame synced up a little bit better. My review is a little bit different because the board members change. When I'm reviewing my staff members or other members are reviewing their staff members, it can be on a cyclical basis for July 1st because there's no change to their supervisor in most instances.
Yeah, okay. And because the officers change basically at the election, it would need to be before the election. So let's create an agenda item, like an old new business agenda item, where we talk about the timing and if we want to take a different approach, or add things to it, or if we feel comfortable with the approach. But okay, so it actually sounds like the change we'd be contemplating would be a relatively small change. And we also are contemplating where the town meeting falls, so. Okay, all right. So
there's two factors. There's the goal setting, and then there's the review, right? There's two things that you're asking us to consider.
Right.
Align
to align a little bit better.
And fit that in with the town election and fiscal year and town meeting and
yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So let's so we will come back and talk about that with you. Okay, we've already done minutes. Any board reports and updates tonight?
I just have a quick update that I have downgraded to being vice chair of the Park and Rec Commission. I found somebody to take on the chair position, so that's
Party soul. Who's taking your shoes?
Matt Brown is taking on. I think we're going to be well represented, and he's excited to hold his first meeting next Monday. So
Cool, and I thought we might go over the Robinson School Building Committee calendar, because I think it's really interesting, but why don't we do that next time? And go through just what's happening when, because there's some really important opportunities for public input, and just, it's a long calendar, it extends into 2029, so I want people to be aware of that. But we'll table that for now and come back. Any other board reports, updates tonight? Okay. Town manager's report.
We have one purchase order and 2 contracts. So the first is for the Forge Village wastewater treatment plant chemical feed pump in the amount of $14,303 from the water department. And then I'm happy to go through the contracts. The next is an annual contract for our stop loss insurance for our health insurance trust. We went out to bid. The Health Insurance Trust is recommending that we continue with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts for the self-insured, partially self-insured fund from March 1st, 2026 through February 28th, 2027 in the anticipated amount of $3,401,088 as requested by the Health Insurance Trust. And this does fit within our budget that we had placed before that you'll see at town meeting. And then the last one is to approve the library building project FF&E, so furniture, fixtures, and equipment contracts with the state procurement vendors as recommended by the J.B. Fletcher Library Board, J.B. Fletcher Library Committee, as well as the Joint Permanent Town Building Committee at their February 17th, 2026 meeting. And if there's any questions on that, we do have representatives from the joint boards, as well as Ellen Rainville and our OPM, Jennifer McGrory.
Yeah, Chris?
I do have a question on that. I'm curious, did we save any furniture from the library, and we're just supplementing in some places, or?
So I'll promote Ellen, and while I'm doing that, we saved a lot of the historical items related to the library, and those are currently in storage at this point in time, being preserved. But a lot of the new chairs and desks and those things will be new to the library, as things were kind of put together piecemeal, and we did have the budget for that. But Ellen, do you want to speak to Chris's question about what furniture we have saved versus what we're purchasing new?
Certainly. So the bulk of the furniture that we've saved, and which is in storage currently, is original antique furniture from the 1895 building. These are study tables that were in the Marriott Wood Room on the 3rd floor, historic cabinets that the historical collection is housed in. We have some original club chairs that were in the original conversation and reading room. Those will be reupholstered and refinished and used again. We saved some chairs in case we had a shortfall in the furnishing budget, thinking that we could reuse them as guest chairs or as chairs in our meeting rooms. But the bulk of our office furniture is from the 1988 edition or even earlier. So what you're seeing in these 4 contracts that we're asking you to award are completely new shelving on 3 levels, furnishings, and a great deal of study and seating for the public.
Thank you very much, Ellen.
Thanks, Alan. Other questions on either the purchase order or the contracts? Okay. If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Any questions about correspondence? None.
So there was correspondence from about 35 Town Farm Road. We did discuss that grant was approved. So I'm not sure if you need anything further related to that item.
I think we're okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, then I'll entertain the motion to waive the reading of correspondence.
So moved.
And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
We need to take a vote on that last one.
Did we not take a vote?
We've got to, you asked for a motion, you got a second.
Oh,
You
to
didn't
waive
call
the reading
for
of correspondence.
You didn't call for the vote,
Thanks,
so.
Chris. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the waiving the reading of correspondence. Do I have a vote?
Aye.
Okay. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.